This is Astrology with Laura and Christine in our second video in our astrology series, where we're going to be talking about the basics of the chart, the astrological chart. So we'll give you some examples of what charts look like. We're going to talk about what's in a chart. And at the end,
How to get a chart.
we'll show you how and where to find your own natal chart, which we recommend you do so that in the upcoming videos, you'll have that to refer to.
All right. So let me share some images. Share screen. Here I have it. Okay. This is how a natal chart looks like. And as you can see, there are many different ways to present the natal chart. I have my favorites. I don't know about you, Christine, but for me, it needs to have colors. And for me, it needs to be clear, not too crowded. So, oh, I think I went too far. I don't know if there's something that you would like to add about natal chart.
Yeah, and we'll be getting into, the representations in this chart, for example, or the ones with the colors. The colors do represent certain things like the elements or angular houses or how the signs are related to each other. And we'll be getting into that. But what we want to do here is just to show you that in case you pull up a chart for yourself and if we had only showed you one, that you would think, oh my God, I got the wrong one, I did the wrong thing. It's just different ways of representing it. And at the end, we'll kind of show you the ones that we will be typically using. And we're going to talk about, so that last slide that Laura showed you when she said it went too far, we'll talk about the different layers that are represented in these charts from the very center of the circle all the way out. And yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit with you too, but maybe we can go back just to your favorite regular chart, Laura.
My favorite. Okay.
Yeah.
This is my favorite. And it is my favorite because I find it clear and clean.
It's
So
not too busy.
not too busy. And of course, you can add in each program will give you options to add more elements. This one that I'm sharing here is very basic. It has only planets in the ascendant. But of course, you can have asteroids and the north nodes, Lilith and Chiron, all other energies that we are going to be sharing information with you. But a chart for me too crowded, it's hard to, it gets too busy that it doesn't help me find the important things. And I think at the beginning, at least in my journey at the beginning, was to find the big things. It's like when you enter a home and it's a whole mess, you start cleaning the big things and then you go into the dusting and all the other parts, right? So I like a chart that has colors because the colors, like you said, mean something. Red is work that you need to do and challenge that you need to overcome, and blue lines are gifts that you have and things that come easy to your life. And the green means learning, opportunities for growth, things that you want to discover, excitement in your life. So um, for me, basically, having colors is the most important thing, but also being able to understand, like some programs will see if I have one of these here. This one here, you have the moon and Mercury, and because they are too close, the Mercury is already a little bit moved from where it really is. So I like a chart where they kind of share the spot, so I know that both are here. Because if you have a conjunction of many planets in one spot, then you ended up having the symbol of the planet way apart from where the planet really is in your chart, and you have to start looking at numbers. That is confusing. So this is one of my favorites. I don't know if you how you think and which one is your favorite, Christine?
Yeah, I do like colors as well. Um, I think it's just helpful for me because the way my mind works, keeping a lot of details of, okay, this sign is this element and this mutable quality, and that's really hard for me. So the colors do that work for me.
This one
I,
makes me do a lot of work.
it does. It makes you do a lot of the interpreting.
Yes.
And that's the really nice thing now about astrology is that it's all there on websites and they do all of this for you. So you can look at the relationships between the planets and the signs and the houses. So maybe we can talk a little bit. So if we go back to your favorite chart,
Oh,
I
my
like,
favorite. Okay.
yeah, I like the way that that had, okay.
This one.
So you see that there are different rings in the charts, and maybe we'll start in the outer ring.
This one here.
And those are all the symbols of all the different signs. And there are 12 signs in the zodiac. So you see them all represented. So when you look up your natal chart, you're going to have all 12 signs also represented in your natal chart. Now they rotate around. So what's at the top of this chart, it looks like two little tadpoles. That's the Cancer symbol. It may not be at the top on your chart, right? So that's how it kind of all rotates, and there's so many different possibilities and so many different ways it can manifest for all the different people in the world.
But
Everyone has a
they,
different chart.
but they are always in the same order and running
Uh,
counterclockwise. So when you find your Aries, which is the first one, then you go counterclockwise and they are organized that
yes,
way.
yes,
And I feel that that's important to I'm glad you mentioned all the zodiac signs are your natal chart. um it's not about defining yourself, oh, I am Aquarius or I am Libra because my sun is in Libra or because my sun is in Aquarius, because all the zodiac signs are somewhere playing in your life. So understanding all of them is important if you want to have a full picture of what's happening in your life.
yes. So if we go the next concentric circle in, that's where you see they're divided into segments and each segment is numbered. So you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, those are the houses. And each house has a different function in your chart. And you, if you want to divide it into hemispheres, so the top half versus the bottom half of the circle, or the right half versus the left, or each quarter, those represent different aspects of you and your life and your journey.
Yeah. And
And
with the house, I'm sorry, with the house, they always start at the same, different than the sign. The house always start, the first house starts with this red line here. So this is your ascendant that we're going to talk about it later. But your first house starts with your ascendant. And as the signs also rotates counterclockwise. So you're always going to find your first house starting here.
just below that
And
line.
yeah, and your seventh house starting here, going up. So you have 6 houses under the horizon and 6 houses above the horizon.
And then you see in the houses, you see symbols. And those symbols are the planets. So it's telling you where the planets were at the exact moment that you were born in the sky. So we'll talk about the planets as well in a future class, but they also have different functions and different meanings and different energies, and they interact with one another, and they interact with the energies of the house that they're in. So there's so much going on in your chart that's extremely personalized and individualized for you to give you information about your soul's journey in this lifetime.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, how they interact with each other is these lines that you see here. Some of them you'll see are very close, like in this one, the moon and the sun are just 3 degrees apart. But here there is an opposition where Neptune is in the opposite of Venus. So that's why you have the red line. So this is a different kind of interaction between Neptune and Venus, different than the sun and the moon that are one almost on top of the other one. That's why we have all these lines, and each color tells you how they interact with each other.
Um, I think that's pretty much it for the basics of the chart. We do have that breakdown of the layers. Yes. So, Laura, I'll let you kind of start talking about this because this is something you have
Well,
discovered.
it's just a different way of interpreting. This is the natal chart that we see. It's pretty much what we have already explained. This is the chart that one of the many charts that we see. And there is a center, that's your favorite part, that is shown here. Then there is the aspects, is how the planets connect with each other, is shown here. The planets around the chart is shown here. The zodiac signs is this part here. And then the houses is the last part of this interpretation. So if we start with the center, that represents the soul. Is I think that's the part that you probably want to talk about, is the essence for me. But I don't know for you, Christine, what definitions you want to give to that, this part, the very center of the natal chart, self.
Well, I think it's really interesting because in all of the classes and the books that I've read and all the materials I've seen, very rarely do they talk about the center of the chart. And I think that was one of my questions was, why, what is the center? And it makes sense to me that it's the soul, the higher self, because everything radiates out from that. And I almost feel like the houses and the signs and the planets are different streams of energy that emanate out from the self and return back to self. So there's this energy exchange. And I see very often when I look at a chart like this, I like that you have this breakdown of the layers in a vertical way, because for me, visually, when I see the chart, very often it's a sphere, it's not a flat disk.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure the exact meaning of why I'm getting that imagery, but I do feel that it has to do with the layers. So like yesterday, I texted you that was sitting and I got this image that the natal chart in its circular form spreads out and interlaps and overconnects in the way like the flower of life image, and
Mm-hmm.
that those are the different layers and different facets of our life and of our higher self and different lives that we've lived and potential lives. And so there's a lot of energy that I see and feel into this chart, and that's why the soul and showing it in this way to me is really important, because I think that's a missed aspect so often in when people talk about the astrological chart.
Yeah, I think one thing we can also explain is that you can actually picture the person standing here in this very center. And when the person sees the east and sees the horizon, this is the point here of the ascendant. And this is the day sky. This is all what the person can see above from east to west, which is the descendant in the natal chart. And the bottom six houses, and it is what will be, in the under part of earth. I don't know how to explain that, the part that you cannot see because it's not the sky. It's, you are seeing like half of the picture, there is another half that is um and at the bottom. And this is the houses that you'll see under the horizon. But this would be the person standing and looking at the sky at this moment, and this is what the person sees. West, east horizon, the ascendant; west horizon, the descendant.
It's really interesting because as you were talking about that and I was visualizing it, I saw the human figure, the person, the individual, standing in the sphere, and the upper level, so maybe from the solar plexus up, is that upper hemisphere. And that's the very visual. And from the solar plexus down, I saw that like into Earth, into Gaia.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense then when I look at your ancestral energies and the environment, and it is the very everyday kind of life, and it's a very personal life that is represented by that southern hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
And the upper hemisphere to me is then all about how you reach out into space and you shine your energies from you outward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your capabilities and your motivation and your work. The other thing I wanted to say that maybe people don't realize necessarily is that the planet Earth is not represented in the natal chart. And I think that is also considered from the as the center of the chart. So maybe that visualization that I had as well was part of that, placing Earth in the center with the individual.
Well, wouldn't be all of these Earth with Earth's soul in the center, same connected with our soul, and then all the expressions and all the things that we are able to express, manifest, and create in this physical dimension, from how we communicate or how we create our arts and how we help, how we connect with others, our careers, our social groups. Um, don't you think is in a way Earth giving and creating? I don't know if Earth or more like this dimension giving us all the spectrum of things and possibilities to do and to create and to experience.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see the center as, so I'm seeing it as this is the perspective of the earth, right? And
Mm-hmm,
all of these signs, because they are constellations,
mm-hmm,
and all of these planets are what you would see from the perspective of the earth looking out in all directions.
mm-hmm.
So to me, Gaia or the earth is in the center, and maybe it's the mirror or the lens that helps you project out your work and your creativity and your interactions. And I don't know, but it's an
Yeah.
interesting concept to start just think about, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it comes up a lot.
No, but basically the center is that unchangeable spirit. You can call it earth or our soul, or is that thing that is it's unchangeable. Um, that is the essence.
Hmm. Yeah, because the center of a chart doesn't grow or become smaller. It it doesn't have planets that move into it or move out of it. It just is.
It is.
It is. It just is.
So then we can talk about the second layer, which is the aspects, and it's kind of defined as motivation in work. And I think we just talked about it, is depending on how the planets are interacting with each other, is how things are going to, how we're gonna perceive things in life. Some things come really easy. For some people, it's really easy to sing, to communicate, to dance, to I don't know, any gift that a person has. And then we have other situations that we feel is uncomfortable. We rather to not do it. We postpone it, or it's always challenging. That's that's the work that we have to do. That those are the potential for growth, the things that we came here to experience, to learn, to play with. So these connections here is what create the work that we have to do.
Yeah, and it's when we're talking about work, we're talking about soul work. We're not necessarily talking about profession or career.
Although that
It's
is included too.
it is included because that is an aspect, but
Mhm,
I just want to make clear
mhm,
that this is about the soul's journey. And so when we use words like motivation and work, there's lots of aspects to that for a soul's perspective.
mhm. Then the third layer is the planets that are here. And I think of planets like little personalities that we have. Each planet brings um, something into ourselves, our emotional self, our mental self, our warrior, how we connect with the spirit. So each planet, we're gonna go through all of them in details, but is are the tools that we have, the elements that we have to go through life, right? I know.
Yeah. And if you think about the planets, they're closely tied to mythology. So if you think about Pluto or Jupiter or Saturn, there are stories about their personalities and their lives and what they liked and what they didn't and how they worked and what their foibles were and what their powers and strengths were. And those are the energies that they represent and that we connect with in different ways. So, that's maybe that'll help kind of solidify a little bit what we mean by they each have their own as a tool. They're a different tool. They have different personalities and energies that we're working with and that
Mhm.
they're working with us.
And then the last layer is the houses, which will be our environment.
Oh,
Every
wait, we have to do the
Oh,
sign.
sorry. Yeah, the zodiac signs. I forgot this one. Um, I think the zodiac signs is information that has been channeled through generations that we receive and that we apply. Um, and the thing is, you will see that the planets are always located in one sign. So that sign colors in a way the attributes of the planet. But it changes over time, I think, depending on what is life offering us. I'm sure that a warrior now is not the same warrior that was 2000 years ago, and our definition of beauty is not the same as we had 2000 years ago. So for me, the zodiac signs is ancestral energy, but also that we are updating and we are giving form and we are contributing to its own growth. What do you think?
Interesting. I hadn't ever thought about the differences and how you define the energies, planets versus signs. But when you were talking about how, now versus 2000 years ago, it made me think of how they're talking about the age of Aquarius
Mhm.
and we're coming out of the age of Pisces, right? And so there's levels to those energies too. So I'm an Aquarius, right? But I'm born in 1971 and I'm living now in 2022. And the earth is also going through phases of and experiencing the energies of each sign as time passes. So I think it's 2000 years about or 3000 years that it is in each sign. Like how long have we been in the Pisces?
I think it's 2160 years each era.
Yeah. So,
And
that
we
would
are,
make sense
yeah, we
then.
are at the end of Pisces entering Aquarius now.
Yeah. So it would make sense what you're saying that our concepts and our relationship to the world and how we see the world around us and how we interact with it changes as time goes by because we're experiencing Earth through all of those signs over time as well and those energies.
Mhm.
I never thought of it as ancestral energies though.
Yeah, it's hard to define the signs because
Yeah.
we kind of learn that, okay, this is Aries, this is Taurus, this is, but we don't understand what that means, or if we want to go deeper. Um, But when we find Aries, for example, in our natal chart, everything that is connected or in that space of Aries, it takes the energy of a warrior. It takes the energy of someone that wants action because it's associated with fire, for example, right? So it needs everything that touches that spot in your chart. The house that is in that spot, the planet that are going to be colored with action, with wanting to get things started, with movement, with being the leader. So, and again, depending on where and how, when and where you're living, is how you're going to color that energy too. Because being a warrior here is not the same as being a warrior in another part of the world, right?
think I think there's something to the idea, and you mentioned it, of the elements. So the earth, fire, air, and water. And that obviously brings it down to a very earthly existence. And so maybe that is the difference for me now. And so the signs bring you into the different aspects of um, living a life here in a human form on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the planets are energies and strengths, like characteristics that allow you to bring forth on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and act on Earth and live a human life on Earth. So
Yeah,
maybe that's the difference between the signs and the planets' energies.
yeah. And let's go to the easy one, the houses.
Yes.
There's this last circle here, which in this one is not too clear, but you can see some kind of breaks, these lines here that are defining houses. The first one starting here, moving counterclockwise, second one, third. The houses are areas of your life where things happen. Everything that is happening here will be reflected or will be played in one area of your life. From communication, self worth, to career or connections with others. So it defines where things happen. Whatever the planets want you to encourage you to do and give you the tool to do it, the zodiac sign will color that planet and add some energy to that planet. And then where the planet is going to play in the house that is located. But also through the connections, it's going to play not only in the house that is located, but also with the planets that are located in other houses. So through the other planets are going to also play in other houses, right?
Yes. So I'm really looking forward to when we do the video on houses, because I've been writing the story of the soul journey through the houses, and each house represents a different aspect or area of your life. And we kind of already alluded to that with the idea that one represents you and your relationship to your body and how you act in the world. One's about abundance and your self worth. One's about your early childhood, and one's about your creativity, and one's about your work with groups and partnerships and higher education and relationship to society. And so it really creates this whole picture of self, each when you bring all 12 houses together. But there's also a soul journey in there. And maybe we'll talk about this too at some point, the idea of living many lives. And again, in order to create a whole experience, you need to experience every house in its fullest. And so the soul journeys through all of those. And then when it completes one cycle, it moves up and it says, okay, I've evolved now and grown, and I'm going to start going through them again, but with a newer, higher perspective. And it goes, so there's this whole, ooh, I'm getting all goosebumps. So there's this whole soul story behind the houses that I've been really fascinated by. And I've written this whole thing. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that, because I think it adds so much to understanding self when you look at the houses that way.
Yeah. And today's video is not for you to remember or understand the natal chart. We just want to introduce you to a natal chart and tells you all the components of the natal chart. We are going to go step by step. We are going to start by explaining each zodiac sign, each element, each planet, and each house. And so then you can start putting like a puzzle, putting all the pieces together and figure your own chart. So today is just opening yourself to see all the things that you can read when you see this circle here.
So true. And two things I want to point out to that. One is that I started learning astrology the same way, just like basic overview, and then we just talked about the signs, and then we just talked about the houses, and we did it sign by sign. But even just starting with the signs and looking at my chart, I learned so much about myself. And then we added on the planets and how the planets interact and represent each sign. And then I learned more. And then I added in the houses, and it kept expanding and adding on all these levels and layers. So you can learn a lot just by doing the very basics. So don't feel like, oh, it's going to take forever for me to get to the point where I can really get any information out of this. I mean, it's right from the very beginning for me. It really was interesting and eye-opening in some ways to see the chart just kind of unfold. Um, the other thing that I wanted to bring up was that if you have questions as we go through these, so say we start talking about the first three houses and you're looking at your chart and you're wondering what's going on, I don't understand how this is working, or why do I have this here and what's this line there? Our Facebook group is a really great page to be part of and to post those kinds of questions. And we're going to be very active on there. So we're here and the whole community is going to be here all along the way. So there's always going to be resources and a place where you can go and ask your questions and start figuring things out.
Yeah, I was thinking that we're going to show now how to pull your own natal chart, but
Yeah,
maybe something that we can actually do step by step. And once we have the Facebook group set up, we can put that on our group, like step by step through the websites,
that'd
how
be
to
great.
get your own natal chart. Because when you get used to it, it's something really easy. But at the beginning, I remember trying to collect all the information and where to put it and what kind of charges. It can be a little bit, confusing at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so you want to walk them through that?
Yeah, we can do that. But let's talk about what they need in order to get the natal chart.
Okay.
So you will need your date of birth and, if possible, the exact time of birth and where, the location. Those are the three components in order to get the natal chart. In order to understand houses, you need the exact time of your uh, birth, your birth time,
Okay.
because 4 minutes difference can move the chart 1 degree. So sometimes you have a planet right at the cusp of a house, and 4 minutes difference it makes your planet be in second house or third house, which can be written in a completely different way.
But that isn't to say that if you don't have that information, your chart still can be read. It's just going to not have some really specific information that
Mhm.
we'll be covering in here. And I know some people have a guesstimate of, okay, it's around 9 in the morning or around 2 in the morning. So even if you have an estimate, that's a little bit more helpful. And just keep in mind that certain things, so if a planet's right smack in the middle of a house and you have an estimate time, then you can be pretty sure that that planet is in the house. But if it's kind of near the cusp of the line of one house to another, you'll have to play it by ear, and maybe we can help you try and figure that out a little bit more.
Yeah, it's more advanced, but there are ways to make
Yeah,
corrections on the chart.
yeah.
So based on the events that happen in your life, if you remember events, the corrections can be made. It's kind of complicated, but we might get there eventually.
And I believe the site we're going to use, it asks you for a time. I don't think there's a way of getting a chart without a time. So you
Okay,
can estimate or just put in noon. I think that's how astro.com works.
let me see. Um, okay, I'm gonna share. I have it here. I'm gonna have to move. All right. This is the website, one of the more popular websites, astro.com. Is the one that you use too, Christine?
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to start from the very beginning. You go to chart and calculations, click here. Then you go to extended chart selection. And then here is where you're going to put your information. Let's add a new person. A for a name, and M for the last name. And it's a female that was born January 19. This is just, any time, any date, any hour. That's good enough. And then you go here to continue. And show the natal chart. And here is the chart. One thing that is always recommended to do is go here and double check the information. Date of birth, time of birth, and location. And here you have your chart. It's very, very simple. Is there anything, Christine, you would like to add?
Just wanted to just emphasize that it really will be helpful for you to do this and even print it out. And there is the option to print that. And just to keep it handy for our future classes so you can really work through your chart. And we can talk about like the graph at the bottom and all of that. It gives you some of the information, the more specifics about degrees and relationships between planets and houses and that kind of thing.
Yeah. With the charts, you'll find other things. They might ask you, some other websites might ask you questions. You'll see that here are symbols that are not planets, like Chiron and North Node. A lot of the websites will give you options of what other asteroids or points you want to add to your natal chart. You'll get familiar with it and it will come easier to click and remove or add things depending on what you're looking to see. But the very basic, to begin with, planets and let's see here. You put your information and you click natal chart and you'll have the very basic, the planets, the houses, and the zodiac signs. Is there anything else that you want me to show here, Christine?
No, I think that's good. And just to point out, you can add a new person and you can do one for your husband or for your children or for your partner, or
Yep.
if you have their information in that way, you can kind of start to see their charts
You
too.
go,
That's
yeah,
something
you go here to back to the chart selection. And again, add a new person. And then you just add the names and the same thing that we did. And you can get friends and family, everybody's charts. There you go.
Hey, wow, I think we covered enough. I hope that you're not too overwhelmed with all the information, but we are going to be breaking it down into mini classes and covering all of it and building up for you. So we hope that you join us for the next class. Did we decide what we were going to do in the next class
Not
or
yet.
not
We
yet?
can start with signs or
Yeah.
houses. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, maybe we'll start with signs. I think that might be a good place to start.
Okay.
But either way, we'll be posting this video, and in the description, we'll let you know what the next video and in the series or next videos are going to be and that we're covering. Just to remind you that we're going to be posting videos regularly, so they're going to be both on my channel and alternating with Laura's channel. So if you want to subscribe and get notifications when they come out, that might be helpful. There also will be playlists on both of our channels for all of this series. And we'd love to see you on our Facebook page. Again, all that information is going to be down below.
Alrighty. Well, we really hope that this was helpful. And if you have to remember something out of all this video, it's just the last part, how to get your natal chart. Everything else, we're gonna go back and dig deeper. But it will be really important if you get your natal chart, so that way when in the next videos you have reference of what we're doing and bring everything that we're gonna be explaining to your own unique chart.
Yeah. And just as I'm thinking of it, you can always comment below too. If you're have questions about something, or there's something you're super curious about and really want us to cover when we do the signs, or you can always comment below on these videos too. And we would love suggestions and feedback and just to hear what you're thinking and how these videos are helping or not helping, or getting you to think about certain things. I think we added in some extra stuff that isn't usually part part of astrology, but that's the whole point of doing soul astrology, right? We really want to emphasize the soul journey as part of the class.
Alrighty then.
All right. Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Christine.